As you know, I'm Kyneton, the Tech Pro, and today I'm going to be taking you on Spring Security. This will be a full course on Spring Security from beginning to the end. So we have to do it step by step without skipping any step at all. And all the procedure you need for this course is outlined here in my website. It's in steps, step 1 to 8 for the first part, and step maybe 10 to 9 to 13 maybe. So we are going to do it in one full course, so I'm not going to split it into parts. I actually did one, I split it into parts, but this is going to be a full course. Again, I'd like to remind you to subscribe to my channel. For you to follow completely, click on the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel. The reason is because when you subscribe, we can work together, and also you motivate me to keep making these lessons, and that means I'll be sure that there are persons I'm actually working with that benefit from my classes. So please subscribe to my channel by clicking on the button below. And so we are going to just go with the first step immediately. I'm not going to waste any time. Again, all the code snippets you need, all the pieces of code, if you miss it out, they are all there in the website. So link to this website or to this web page is right here below in the description box on this video. If you have challenges, leave me a comment. I'm going to respond to you to help you solve any problems you have. So step 1, I'm going to first show you that I've actually done step 1. Step 1 means create an unsecured web application. So if you have any web application you've created, you can actually follow this tutorial to add security and log into this web application. So I've actually done this step, create an unsecured web application. So if I go ahead to run this application now, you can see that we'll be able to access this application and get data from this application. So it's running at port 8080. So if I go to localhost at port 8080 and I go to /students, we can see a list of students running. So this application is unsecured. Anybody can access it, no security, no login. So, but I would like us to follow the procedure. So the procedure says that we should add a web page. For now, this is an API, meaning that it returns a list of items in JSON. So let's add a web page. To add a web page, you need to add the time leaf dependency. Now, I've made another class, another complete time leaf lesson that you can follow. If you check the description box, you'll find a complete tutorial step-by-step on time leaf. But now we are going to just take a chunk of it. Let's add a web page to this application. So to do that, the first thing you want to do is to add the time leaf dependency. So if you go to Maven repository, actually you easily go to Maven repository by typing Maven repository, and then go to Maven repository and then search for time leaf. So the one you are going to use is a Spring Boot time leaf starter. That is this one, and I'm going to take the latest one. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to put it in the pom.xml. So just come to pom.xml and put it in the dependency section. So if you have done that, that is fine. And we also have Spring Boot web starter. We've done it. So we are going to create a HTML page at this point. So this HTML page is going to serve as our home page, but you are going to create this HTML page in a particular folder, not anywhere. You are going to create it in the template folder. If you drop down SRC main resources, you'll see templates folder. Just go there and create, go to order and create HTML. So you can actually type HTML here, HTML, and it's going to search out HTML and just create it. And just give it index.html. I'm going to say complete. So I'm going to just put something there, h1. I'm just going to say welcome to Spring Security. Okay, so now we have the home page. We also need a controller. So these are the steps I'm following. So I'm actually following them because I already know. So go to the package and just go to new and just create a class. You are going to call this class, let's call it home controller because we are using it to display the home page. I'm going to call it home controller. Okay. So in this controller, I'm going to write a method that is going to return the home page that we created. This index HTML page, this controller is going to return it. So the first thing we want to do is to annotate this file with the controller annotation, and then we are going to write a method that returns the home page. So this method is going to be a public method and is going to return a string. Let's just call it home, and is going to just say return index, just the name of the file you created, index, that's all. So that is it. This is how to return the home page, the HTML page. So actually, when you are working with JSP, if you have idea of JSP before now, this time leaf makes it way much easier to work with pages in Java. So I'm going to press Ctrl Shift O on my keyboard, and then I'm going to run this. Let's see that this home page is actually displaying. Let me save it, and then I'm going to rerun it again. Now, if you want to beautify this page, you can use Bootstrap to add some design on this page. I've made a full tutorial on Bootstrap time-leaf tutorial where you can actually learn how to add good page design on the page. So now let's just go to visit index and see. So I'm going to go here, instead of going to /student, I'm going to say, is it index or home? So let's see. So actually, this method needs a mapping. So it needs a request mapping. So we're actually telling Spring Boot that if your user goes to /home, it should display the index page. So it should display this page. So this is the name of the HTML page to display when a user goes to this URL. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to run this application and let's see. So yes, I'm going to save it. While it's starting up, I'm going to just check where we are. So these are the codes for the page and for the controller. Everything is clear. Okay, so let's go and try. So we can go to home, and you can see that it displays welcome to Spring Security. This is our home page. If I go to view the source, view the page source, you can see this is a simple page that we created in Spring Boot. So let's follow the procedure to now talk about adding username and password. How do we secure these pages so that when a user tries to visit it, he'll be prompted to enter his password before he can visit this page? It's also very simple. There is a dependency that handles security. That dependency is Spring Boot Starter Security. And we are going to go to the repository and look for this security dependency. So Spring Boot Starter Security, you can see, just go ahead to search for it, find it, this one, and I'm going to just take the release 2.6, copy it, and I'm going to just paste it in my pom.xml. In case you don't know, POM means Project Object Module. So I'm sure you should be used to that by now. So let's paste the dependency for Spring Boot Starter Security. All right, so at this point, how do we design the login page for this application? Well, it happens that Spring Boot does it automatically for us. Let's now try it. After having put this dependency in our pom.xml, let's try to run it at this point, save, and then I'm going to run. I'm restarting it. So one interesting thing is that we have not created any login page, and we've not designed any login logic at all. But if you look at the console, you can see a password has been generated for us. Anyway, that is not the point. Let's try to access this application again and see what happens. So if I press F5 to try to access the page again, it tells me, please sign in. So what is the username and what is the password? Well, I've not created any username. It happens that the default username is user, and the default password that has been created for us is this one in the console. So let's copy this password. I'm going to copy it. Meanwhile, if I type any password, it doesn't work. So I'm going to use user, and I'm going to use the password I copied from the console. And if I sign in at this point, it displays the home page. But you cannot continue to build application in this way. You cannot use the default username and password because a hacker can easily find it and use it to access your application. So what do we do? Well, there's one way you can do it. One is you can put username and password in the application.properties file. In case you don't know, application.properties file is inside the SRC main resources folder, this place. So you can actually copy this and put in there. Again, it's also hard-coded. You cannot continue to create usernames and password in this way. Now, for some reason, when I try to do this, it actually does not log in. For some reason, I don't know, so I'm not going to demonstrate it. So let's really go to the key part of this tutorial. How do we configure username and password? To do that, we use a configuration file. A configuration file is simply a Java class that extends web security configure adapter. So just create a file, give it a name, and make this file to be a subclass of web security configure adapter. Let's go ahead to do it and let's see. So inside this file, you can now configure security. So I'm going to just name this file any name I want. So I'm going to call it app. Now you can give it any name, but I like naming, give it a name that is meaningful. App security config. Okay. I'm going to make it to extend web security configure adapter. So I'm going to just copy this and paste here. I'm going to say extend. Again, these pieces of codes, you already have it in this place. So if you miss out something, just copy and paste. Feel free to copy and paste. Control-Shift-O on my keyboard, and it's going to get the needed namespace. All right, the first thing we need to do is to tell Spring Boot that this class is a configuration file, and we also enable web security. So to do that, first you say add configuration, and then you say add enable web security. All right, so Control-Shift-O on my keyboard, and that is fine. So it happens that this web security configure adapter has some methods that we need to override. So this method that we need to override is the user details service method available on this web security configure adapter. We need to override it and provide implementation such that we have list of usernames and passwords. So to do that, we are going to create, of course, we need to override it, so protected user details service, give it a name, the method, the name user details service, okay. All right, so I'm missing out anything? No. I think I'm just being too fast unnecessarily. Okay, so user details service, user details service. Oh, missing out anything? User details service. All right. Okay, Control-Shift-O on my keyboard. And then the next thing we want to do is to add at override, because it's a method that we are overriding. At override. And also make it a bin so that we'll be able to reuse it. All right, so everything is fine. So in this method, we are now going to configure usernames and password. More like we are going to configure security credentials for login, for user login. So let's create a list of user details, a list of user details. So it happens that user details is a wrapper method, is a class that wraps user information, or that contains user information that has been provided by the web security configure adapter. So we call it user details. So at the end of the day, we are going to implement this class. For now, let's create list of user details. Let's call it users is equal to new array list. So we want to have an array list of user details. Okay, so we can just create maybe 3 different users. So we can say users.add users. So for sure I'm going to do this. Okay, users.add. So we need to add a user details. I actually can create 3 different user details separately and then add it, but it's better I add it inline. So what I'm saying in effect is I think it will be easier if I create 3 user details. So I can just say, let me create 1 user detail. I'm calling it user details u1 equal to user.with default password encoder dot username, and specify the username. Let's say Kindson to be the username. Also specify the password. Passwords Kate. Okay, it can be anything. And then you say dot roles. Now roles is something like administrator, user, super user, and so on. So admin roles is user. And finally you say dot build. All right. Okay. So I'm going to just at this point I'm going to shift this this way. So you can see that I've created 1 user called Kindson and has password Kate. I'm going to create more users. I'm going to copy this. So I've created 3 users. Let's call this one Jaden. And let's call the last one Solace. Okay, so 3 users for Kindson, Jaden, and Solace. All of them have the same password. Now I'm going to say this is U2 and U3, 3 user details object, and I'm going to just add them to the list. Now this method I'm using is actually long, kind of longer than the one in my website, in the website. Okay, so I'm going to just say users.add u1. Okay, so users.add u2, users.add u3. All right, so we now have list of users, 3 users created, and the names or u1, u2, and u3, list of 3 user details. Now we are going to return the user details service. Expect us to return user details service. It doesn't expect us to return users. It's not going to work because the return type is user details service. So we are going to return. So it happens that there's a way to handle this. So handle this problem. So we are going to return an in-memory user details manager and give it a list of users. So I'm going to say return new in memory. The reason is because all these users I've created, they are not stored in a database. After now, we are going to store the user details in a database. They are stored in memory. So in memory user details manager, and then give it users the list of user details to return. Okay. So the namespace is in provisioning. So just add it. Good. I'm going to save. At this point, we have created a list of users in the configuration file. So we've actually configured the security, but for now we don't have users details stored in database, but now we are making progress. So if you got to this extent, congrats, you've done so well. Let's test it and make sure we can use these user details here to be able to log into this application. So at this point, I'm going to run this application and let's see if this will work. Now, if you see that with default password encoder is a problem because it's marking it, it's kind of canceling it out because it's not secure to use the default password encoder. You should use a strong password encryption technique, MD5 or something better than that. So this is because of this demo we are doing this. You should not do this in any real production application. All right, so everything started and we are going to go to test this application at this point. I'm going to refresh. If you look at the console, there is no password provided for us at this point. So if I try something and try, it doesn't work. So let's try JDone and the password is Kate, K-A-T-E, and let's see. So you can see it worked. If we go back and try a different one, Solace, Kate, it also works. All right, so if you want to play around, you can create more users here and then see how you can use it to log in. So this is step one. Congrats if you've come to this point. Also, if this is informative for you, like this video and share it and subscribe to my channel if you've not subscribed. We are now moving into how to work with a database. Again, all the procedures and the codes, they are right here. You can find in the description box. So let's go to the next one. Again, you have the step-by-step and we are going to follow. So the first thing we want to do is to configure MySQL database. As I mentioned, for you to follow this tutorial, you need to have MySQL installed in your system. MySQL is free. The community edition is free. That is what I'm using and you can use it. It's very good to use. If you install MySQL and you can go to programs, you find the MySQL folder. You can see right here and go to command line. Now you can use the workbench to MySQL workbench. Actually, you can use it to use a graphical user interface, but it's easier to use a command line. I'm going to show you. So at this point, I don't know. I think I. Okay, so I'm going to click here and go to properties so that I make it a little bigger. So I'm going to go to fonts, change the font to 18. I'm also going to colors. The screen text should be yellow, maybe, that will be fine. And the background is black, that is fine. What are the fonts? Maybe we'll leave the font the way it is and let's say okay. So I don't really know why it didn't change. Maybe I'll try a second time, properties. I'm going to colors, screen background, okay, terminal, use separate color foreground, okay, options, okay, so fonts, layout, colors, so everything should be okay. I don't know why it's not responding. Okay, anyway, I hope you can see. I think it expects me to run as administrator, which is better. Maybe I'll just run as administrator so that I'll be able to do this and it's clear to you. So let's go to MySQL and I'm going to, at this point, right click and run as, no option to run as administrator here. Anyway, let's just continue. I'll try one more time. Go to fonts and increase the font to 18. Okay, it doesn't work. Unable to modify. Check and make sure it has not been deleted. Okay, let's just continue in this way. So the first thing you can do is to just create a database. Just say create database, create database users DB. Okay, I've created one database. Let's just create a table called users. A table called users that will have ID, username, and password. That's all. So I'm going to say create table users. Create table users. I'm going to open and I'm going to say ID int okay, comma. I'm going to say username varchar 100 comma. I'll make no mistake here because it's going to actually be a problem if we make a mistake. So I'm going to say password varchar 100 to be on the safe side. Now we are going to say the primary key will be ID. So just say primary key, it will be ID, and I'm going to close the final one, enter. No database selected. I'm going to say use, because you need to say use the database, use users DB before we now write all this code. I don't know, I think this will not work at this time because I need to rewrite all of this from the scratch. So I'm going to copy this and then let's see if I can copy. Just Control C on my keyboard, Control V. Okay, so at this point it pasted. I don't know. So let's see. Okay, so I'm going to write everything from the scratch, no problem. So I'm going to say create table users, create table users, open bracket, ID int, username varchar of let's say 50 or 100, anyway is okay, and password varchar 50 as well. Then we need to specify that the primary key is the ID. So I'm going to say primary key is the ID. Let's see. So it worked. Everything is okay. So if I say show tables at this point, you can see we have one tables in users DB. So let's just insert one user with username and a username ID and password. So insert into users values. So ID of one, username of let's say Hercules, and passwords as gifts. Okay, Hercules password. Okay, perfect. So let's insert another one. Let's say this time we are inserting Achilles. Okay, so password is gold. Okay, so we have two users we've inserted right here. So this time I'm changing the primary key to 2. All right, so perfect. So we've created the table, we've populated with users. So if I say select, start from users, you can see that we have 2 items there. Okay, so the next thing is to configure MySQL database. Now, in our application, we need to tell Spring Boot that we are trying to connect, or we are going to be connecting to MySQL database. And to do that, you need to specify the driver, the password, the username for your MySQL installation in your system, as well as the port where the SQL is running. So instead of typing it out, I'm going to just copy it from here and paste it in the application.properties file right here. So I'm going to paste it here. So far so good, but there's a problem. The problem is I'm not sure this is the right port where MySQL is running on my system. So I'm going to go to open Workbench. So I'm going to say Workbench. It's going to tell me where MySQL is running on the system. That is the port number where SQL is running on the system. All right, so you can see it says 3301 right here. I hope you can see 3301. That is the port. So it's not 3307, 3301. Okay, so again, one thing you can do is to say, okay, I'm going to talk about that a little later. Okay, so we've done this. Add text record and show the necessary dependencies. So at this point, we need two more dependencies: Spring Boot Starter JPA, MySQL connector Java. These are the two things you need to add. So let's go to the Maven repository and say JPA, and let's say Spring Boot Starter JPA, JPA Starter. Okay, Spring Boot Starter Data JPA. So I'm going to take release 2.16. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it in the pom.xml. Again, the procedures are there for you. If you miss it out, you can actually copy it and paste from here. So I have the Spring Boot Starter Data JPA. That helps you to manage connection to the database or to do kind of ORM, object relational mapping, how to map objects in your database in your application to database in the MySQL server. The next thing we want to add is MySQL connector Java. I'm not going to copy from here because I want you to be able to get this by yourself in the repository, in Maven repository. So MySQL connector J. So that is what you use. I'm going to take 8.0.16, copy it, and then I'm going to just come here and paste it in the dependency section. All right, so at this point, we are making progress. Okay, so at this point, we've added all the needed dependencies. We added security dependency before now. You can check. And security dependency, where are you? So I think I added it timely. Oh yeah, this security. Fine. So everything is going perfectly well. I'd like to thank you for being there. So let's just continue. Don't give up. Do this a number of times. You get used to it. Now we need to create a user entity that represents the user in the database, right? So we need to create a user entity in our application, the object that is going to map to the user in the database. That is what we are going to do. And at this point, I'm going to copy it from here. Actually, you can call it person or user, anything you want. So I'm going to come here and say create new class, and it's going to be user. I'm going to just paste. So it's exactly the same like what you have in the database. We have ID, username, and password. And at this point, we need to add identity annotation and also add ID annotation. I'm going to just save it so that we'll be able to import the necessary namespace. So it's saying building workspace, as you can see. But meanwhile, we can create the getters and the setters by right-clicking and go to source and go to this time constructor using fields. Okay, perfect. Constructor has been created. And I'm going to add getters and setters. Go to source. Oh, sorry, not this. So go to source and go to generate getters and setters. Select everything and say generate. Okay, we have the getters and setters. We have the constructor. I'm going to check why. Okay, imports and also imports from Javax that persistence ID. Let me just bring down the screen. Okay. So what are we missing out? I guess we can just move on to the next step. So I'm going to save everything. So now this is important. We need to configure authentication provider. Authentication provider, we also need to do this configuration inside the configuration file that we created initially. So let's go back to the configuration file, this app security config file that we created. I'm going to just shift this downwards a bit. So This time we will configure a provider. So a provider is like an entity that or an object that provides security configuration for your application. So we need to create a method that returns type authentication provider, and inside this method, we create a new DAO authentication provider, auto-wire user details into this class, and set the user details of the provider. You will create the service in the next section, then return DAO authentication provider object. All right. Okay. So now we are here, and permit me to just delete everything in here. So let's see. This is the same. This is the same. Okay. So okay. Okay. Permit me to delete all of this at this point. So let me delete all of this. Okay, we are starting from the bare bones at this time. The first step is create a new DAO authentication provider. Okay, so DAO authentication provider is authentication provider, and I'm going to just create it by saying public authentication provider authentication provider. All right, so let's try to see if we can follow the procedure step by step. So we've done this, auto-wire user details into this class. User details of the class is not yet created. So I'm going to say it's auto-wired, and we are auto-wiring the user details in. So user, to auto-wire something, a class, or just create a private member variable of that class type. So you say private user details service, user details service. Hope I'm not having any typo. Okay. All right. So public authentication provider has been created. Auto-wire user details into this class. Of course, user details is not yet created, so we are going to be doing that a little later. User details service. Set the user details service of this provider. Set the user details service of this provider. So for sure we can, this has to be a bean. So this has to be a bean for now. So this alt provider, okay, it's fine. So DAO authentication provider is equal to new DAO authentication provider. Okay, so hope I'm not missing out anything. Okay, so let's return the provider. Return. Okay, so the authentication provider is an authentication DAO. Okay, I'm going to get it. Okay, just save everything. No, cancel this. Save. All right, so we created DAO authentication provider, which is this. Okay. Auto-wire user details service into this class. Okay. Set the user details service of this provider, which is what we did. Okay. Set the user details service of this provider. Return the DAO authentication provider. Okay. So Now we need to create the service layer. The service layer is actually a layer that contains the business logic. It's also called the business service or the service layer. Okay. So to do that, the user details service implements user details service interface, and I call it my user details service. Okay. So the user details service, if you look at this place, you see that we already have it. So we have Spring Security providing us with user details service, but we need to implement it so that we'll be able to override the methods there and be able to provide our own configuration that connects to our database. So that is why we need to create another class that implements user details service. Okay, so I'm going to just go to create a new class and I'm going to call it my user details service, my user details service. Now the secret to understand this is do it several times. Follow the procedure. The first time is not clear because that is how I did it. The first time I was learning Spring Security, it was not clear. But after some time, it becomes clearer and clearer. So do it, delete everything, do it again. By the time you do it 2 times or more, about 3 times, it becomes clear. So we need to create user details service class, okay, and that we are doing by giving it a name, user details service, and it's going to, okay, I'm going to, so let's continue from here first. No, this is not right, so I'm going to delete it. So the instruction says this class implements user details service interface, and I call it my user details service. So let's go back and do it all over again. New class, call it my user details service. Okay, so at this point of creation, you need to make it implement user details service. So I'm going to just say I'm going to find user details service and make it implement this. Okay, so it's going to implement this interface. Okay, so auto wire the user repository into user details service. We are going to do that. So I'm going to just say finish. Okay, so now you can see that we have this method called load user by username. All right, that is one, but we need to also have a repository. Anytime you have a database connection for your application, you need to have a repository, and I'm going to wire this repository into this service because this service is going to be talking to the repository, and we've not created this repository yet, but we are going to do it. Auto wired. We are going to wire the user repository in here, private user repository, user repository. All right, so what next? We at the end we have this. Okay, so now let's follow this procedure because this is very important. Before we continue, let's create the user repository. User repository is going to be an interface. So instead of going down to create this interface, I'm going to just first, I'm going to auto wire is fine. Okay, so let's take out this for it to become clear. All right, so now we are now going to get the username from the repository. But since we don't have the repository yet, we are going to have problem. So at this point, I'm going to just create a new interface. A repository always has to be an interface. I'm going to create a new interface. If you scroll down to the repository, you can see it's an interface, and it's going to be in this package, the source folder, user security. It's going to extend JPA repository. It's going to extend JPA repository, which is the first one. So I'm going to just finish. So we have this. So now you need to tell the repository the kind of class it is going to connect to, the name of the object. And this is a user object, the name of the entity, and the primary key. Also, the primary key type is integer. All right. So now I'm going to override. Defined by username, because JPA repository provides get, we have delete, we have insert, we have update, but we want to get a user by username. So I'm going to say user find by username is not implemented directly, so we are going to write the method so that it's going to give us the implementation string user name. All right, so at this point, we have the repository. It's going to give us user by username. So I'm going to close it. Now I'm going to go back to this place, and we are going to go to the repository and get a user by username. So I'm going to say user is equal to user repository dot find by username, and we already have the username passed in, so we are going to leave it this way. Now we are going to do some checks, some validation. So if user is equal to null, because if this user does not exist in the database, we are going to throw an exception. So we are going to throw new username not found exception. I'm going to throw new user username not found. So we have this in build exception already. Exception user does not exist. Okay, perfect. So this is the exception is going to throw. However, if this user exists, we are going to just return it. Return new. Now the user details service actually returns user principal, and this user principal is going to be created by using a user object. So I'm going to return new user principal. I'm going to give it a user. Okay. All right. So this is where we are. Okay. So now this user principal has not been created, but it's not a problem. We are now going to go down here. The class that implements user details interface is what we are going to create. The class that implements user details, because what we created is my user details service is different from user details. Now we are going to create a class that implements user details. This looks complicated, but just do it a number of times, it becomes clear. So normally we should have a models package, but I didn't create them. I have a models package. So we are putting everything in the same place. So I'm going to call this class user principal, and it's going to implement user details. This class contains all the methods needed to manage user data. So let's go do it. So I'm going to come here and say new class. I call it user principal. Of course, you can give it a name. Okay, because I already used it in my user details service. Is going to implement user details, okay, not user details service, but user details. I'm going to say okay. So you see that at this point, if I say finish, you can see this class gives us all the methods we need to manage user details in the application. So here we have the account expired, get username, get password, and so on and so on. All right, so we need to modify the getAuthorities method to return the authorities collection, and this you can do using this line. So I'm going to just copy this and paste. So this here, instead of returning null, I'm going to, anyway, let me write it because it's better to write so that it's clear. Collection dot singleton list. The collections of singleton new sample granted authorities and specify user. Yeah. So let me see. New granted authority, and it's going to be user. So this is more like the same as roles, but I'm not sure we are going to be using any roles at this point. So new simple granted authority. So there is a typo here. I'm going to just correct it, and everything is fine. All right. So so why do we have this error? Get authorities. Okay. So we got to return. Okay. So at this point, the final app security config file, we are now going back there. So if I go back here, you can see new user principal user. So let's see, user principal. Let's see. We save everything first. So if I go up a bit, so new user principal takes user. Okay. So let's get back here. User service. Okay. So no, not here. So this is where we are. Load by username. So let's try to get where this. Okay, return new user principal user is correct. Remove argument to match user principal. So there's something we need to do. Let me not mix it up. So there's something we need to do. Okay, so we have new user principal. So let's go to this user principal here. Okay, let's change something to true for now. Let's just change this to true. So let's change to true. For now, we are not putting any restriction. It's true. Okay, so get password. So get username does not return true. It's going to return username. It's going to return get password, get username. So let's just get exactly what we need to do at this point. User repository. So okay, perfect. Modify the get password and get username to return user.getPassword and user.getUsername. So this is going to return user.get. So let's see. Okay, so this is where we are skipping some steps here. Set the methods in the class to true. Add one private field of type user to this class. So these user details, I'm going to add a private user. Okay. So this user details represents one user principal. It represents a user. Set the methods in this class by true. Okay. Add one more private field user. Okay. Generate a constructor that takes user as parameter. So at this point, I'm going to just generate a constructor by saying source. I'm going to say generate constructor from field, only one field, and that's user. So I'm going to generate this. Okay, perfect. So so username return user.getPassword, get password, and username should return user.getUsername. So at this point, if we go here, we have the error is going to go away. All right, so we are making progress. Thumbs up to you if you've come to this point. Don't give up. And again, I'll continue to follow. And if you have challenges, let me know in the comment box and I'm going to help you. The key is do it several times. It's easy. Do it one more time, another time, and it becomes clear. Now, you need to set the user details service of the provider. So let's go to, first, let's save everything. At this point, we are going to app security config. So we need to set the provider is equal to authentication provider, which is what we already have. Okay, so provider the set user details service. So I'm going to say provider dot set user details service is going to be set to user details service. Perfectly okay. Also, you should set the password encoder as well. So of course, this is for security reasons, but for now, let's just use no password encoder. Provider.set passwords encoder, and let's use no op password encoder dot get instance. Okay, that is how it is. So it's not secure to do this, but for now you can just do it because we are doing a demo. All right, so far so good. At this point we are done. Can you believe it? So I'm going to save everything. Now there's one problem that is going to occur depending that is coming from database, and I'm going to show you how to solve it. So let's start by running it, pause, and let's see. So it will have to do with time zone. So it happens many times. I don't know if it's going to happen now, but let's see. Okay, so true to my fear, this happened. So if I go up, you can see server time zone, blah, 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 blah. So to solve this problem, just go to application properties and go to, at this point, just say server time zone equal to UTC. Okay. So I'm going to save everything and I'm going to run again and let's see what happens. All right, so we also have some error here. So let's see where it's coming from. So time zone is equal to UTC or server time zone is equal to UTC. I think it should be time zone is equal to UTC. So let me try that. Okay, so now I'm not getting it. So I'm going to try. Let me get where to solve it. Let me get where this problem. Server server time zone. Server. Okay, so there is a place I solve this. I'm trying to get where I solve this problem. Okay, so
at DataCamp, we provide high-quality interactive courses from the world's best data science instructors.
All right, let me just show you how to solve this problem having to do with time zone that you may encounter in your application in Spring Boot that tries to access data. So if I run this application right now,
where I solve
you'll
this
see
problem.
that it will give UTC. You can also use any.
So the server time zone is equal to UTC. So we're going to say server time zone is equal to UTC. I'm going to just run it from here. So lowercase server and time zone follows. Okay. So we have server time zone is equal to UTC. Okay, so I'm going to take this out for now. I'm going to just take this out, just cut it away. And I'm going to save. I'm going to run it again. If not, I will try to put in server time zone is equal to UTC. I think everything should be okay. Okay, so let's just let's see. Let's see. How Unicode is equal to true. Server time zone. So the zone should be in lowercase zone. So let's go again for the last time, I hope. Okay, so it says injection auto-wired is equal to true. Bib method in memory in user details service configuration is not loaded. Okay, so we are going to go to the user details service and we are going to annotate this with at service annotation. So we are going to say at service, and also we are going to annotate the repository with at repository annotation. So I'm going to come here and say at repository. Okay, so save everything and just run again. Okay, so yeah, so let's see. Giving us error. No, I don't want to proceed. At service annotation is not been fixed. Okay, so I'm going to just stop this, just stop it, and just rerun it again. Yes, save it. So hopefully everything will be fine. It's actually not easy, but I think we've come all the way to the end of this. So we have one more error that says exception creating app security config dependency user details service, creating my user details service field user repository in my user details service. So how user repository nested exception is invocation of methods, no property user found for type user user repository. So let's see. So user repository, okay, it should be fine. Let's see user repository. Okay. Auto wired. Okay, let's just try to figure out where the problem is coming from. So it says app security config. Okay. Field user details service. Field user details service. User details service in app security config. So here. So the field is user details service. Okay. So this user details service. Okay, so it says error creating bin with user details service. Why? My user details service implements user details service and it should be fine. So I'm going to run again. Let me see. So error creating being my user details service. So error creating being my user details service, which is here. Okay. Unsatisfied expressed through user repository. So user repository is fine. Nested exception, error creating being with the user repository invocation of init method failed. Nested exception is java.lang failed to create query for public find by user. Okay, so I think I should know where the problem is coming from. It still be find by username, but I use find by user. So let's go to the repository class. So user repository is where the problem is coming from here. So I say find by user instead of find by user name. Okay. So this is how it should be. I'm going to save it. Save. Find by user name. Okay, that is it. Debugging skills is very essential in programming, and that is one area that almost every programmer needs to improve. So let's run again and see what we have. So at this time, everything started, Tomcat started on port 8080, as you can see. So let's try to assess this application at this time, and let's see what we have. So I'm going to go to the application. I'm going to refresh this page. I'm going to try to enter something, and it's not working. It's not working. So I think I'll try Hercules and gift. Could not extract results as nested exception. SQL grammar result set. Okay, so this is a problem. Could not extract result set. So let me try to find out where this problem is coming from. Let's see. Whoa. Okay, so could not extract result sets. Okay, so let's go back to this point. We are going to be thinking that the problem is coming from here. Oh, so we have this. So it's actually going to be ID. So let's remove this as well. Java persistence. So let me see. Maybe the problem is coming from here. Import entity. Sorry. So for now, I'm going to save and I'm going to say okay. So I'm simply going to say import javax dot persistence dot star. So the star. This is going to cover everything. I'm going to save. So let's see. Okay, so
I'm going to rerun again and let's see. I think everything, okay, let's create a default constructor for now. I'm going to say source. I'm going to say you create a default constructor. I'm going to say generate constructor. Well, this time I'm going to deselect everything. Generate a simple constructor, just a default one. Okay, so at this point I'm going to save and I'm going to run again. I see some kind of problem. So Hercules gift. Okay. So this is not a good thing. So what we can do is to come to entity and we are going to say as table name of this table is equal to user. Let me go to SQL. So name of this table is is what? So the name of the table is users. Have a mix-up. So actually, the name of this table should be user, not users. So that is a mistake. So at this point, I'm going to so the name of this table should be user. So I'm going to say drop table users. Okay. So I'm going to create table user. This should be the name, exactly the name you use in your application is what you are going to use here. Create table user ID int username varchar 50 password varchar 50, and we are going to set the primary key. So primary key ID so insert into user values 1 Hercules gifts. Okay, so Hercules and gifts has been inserted. So now we are going to restart this application again. So let me come here and restart the application. Meanwhile, there is some things need to be saved. Okay, so actually will not cut out all this error because I want you to learn debugging skills at this point. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to refresh this page, and if I enter something else, you can see birth credentials. Okay, so we have Hercules and we have gifts. Let's go. Hercules and gifts. So it worked. So Hercules and gifts worked. So now the login credentials is coming right from the database. It's not been easy. It's not been easy. I'd like to thank you for being there. I'd like to recommend subscribe to my channel, and this way we can do this together. Learn very good debugging skills at this point. And I'll say yes, please leave me a comment to let me know if you have some recommendations, and we'll see you in the next class.